Pleasure to meet you, Steve.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Scott. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I really appreciate
Oh,
it.
thank you. Thank you.
The film's a blast. It is so much fun.
Thank you.
Uh, I really thought it was a solid ride. It really is. It, I mean, the poster behind you right there.
Yeah,
There
it's
it
cool.
is.
Yeah, there it is. I like that you call it a ride. That was the aim. I've said a few times on this junket. We went out to make a theme park ride, right? That's what we wanted. It wanted it to be an experience that because I think that when you like the essence of cinema, when you like put it all back, that's what cinema for me at least should be, right? It should be these emotional experiences ride you get put on, and for this one it was a case of like saying, okay, well if as horror is the core, horror is the core, and you're really kind of playing on the heights of it all, then how do we kind of accentuate that ride and play all the notes that you want to play during that? So it's nice you call it a ride, because that's exactly what we were hoping for.
And the impressive thing to me, this is a one location film, pretty
Yeah.
well, and those are hard to make.
Yeah, that but weird. It's a strange irony, isn't it? Right? Because I think if there was two ways we could make the movie, we could make it in the studio and spend like 50 to $100 million doing it, and when you put that forward, that film never happens, because in today's day and age, unless Spider-Man is on there, it's not going to be a film. So you end up in a situation where, okay, what do? You go the other way, which is kind of trim it right back and kind of get a crack unit of filmmaking crew and talent and whatnot, and take them up a real height and film for real and capture it that way. And that's kind of how we ended up cracking the movie. And I think doing it in a smaller way kind of gave us those freedoms to really kind of do the concept, the kind of singular concept, really well, and kind of play in that space. So yeah, it's a strange kind of irony of how it kind of played and came about, but it helped the movie for sure by being forced into doing it like that.
Well, that's the thing. I think that as a viewer,
Yeah.
listen, I appreciate all the amazing CGI wizardry that everybody can do.
Yeah.
But my understanding is this is filmed as practically as possible, as often as possible. I mean, how did that come about? I know, like you said,
Yeah.
this is this
I
is
think yeah, that's a challenge, isn't it? Because you can kind of like, you can have two people climb up a tower, like, because the tower, these towers really exist. I visited a bunch of them, and people go up there and change the bulbs every now and again. It's like it's very much kind of a reality. But getting two people up there is fine, but actually getting a crew up there and people to film it is nigh on impossible. So what we ended up doing is kind of splitting into two sections. One section was the groundwork in the desert, where we built a tower, but it was probably 100 feet that we kind of used for the ground initial climb off. But the big thing that we did that I think was different was we scouted many locations around California, and came across a very high mountain, Shadow Mountain, which is about 30 minutes out of Victorville. And it had this little rickety road that led all the way up to the top of the mountain. And then it get the top and there's a big cliff drop off. And so essentially we went up there and we built these large sections of towers on the edge of the cliff, so that we could have the girls actually up at height and film the majority of the film all for real, without worrying about any kind of CG or anything like that. And then when we looked all the way down and you start seeing a bit of the mountain, we essentially shot the matching shots over in the desert, so that we had the real ground kind of like stitched in at the edge there. But what I think the thing that makes it real is because they're playing at height, because they're in the environment, and because the camera and the crew are also in that environment, it kind of it feeds through the camera. And I think I think with CGI and those things, it's almost like a glossy kind of lens that you're putting things through, that pulls you out of a grounded nature that you need to really access true kind of horror and terror. You have to do it grounded. So I think this enabled us to do it that way, and I think that's why a lot of the movie works the way it does.
Yeah, I agree. I think I like again, you can get some great CGI, but a
Yeah,
lot of the times you can tell, and it's sort of that moment. There's this disconnect, but
yeah,
you're
it's
really in
subconscious.
this. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They're in it. The other thing I'll say as well, actually, that's interesting is you're in it. It's also to do, I think, like I learned a lesson on it, right? I
Mm.
originally, because we're going up there, and one of our main weapons is a massive bloody techno crane, right? To be able to film at height over and all these things, and And I remember thinking, oh, it'd be great to have this kind of fancy shot and do all these things, right? That you do as a director, going, oh, yeah, this will look great. But when I came to it, even though we achieved those shots, I remember when I came to start editing it, I felt like I'd missed a trick because I was observing not rather than watching it through the point of view of the character. And I very quickly started getting into this notion that actually what really works, like if you learn from like Free Solo is a great example of a documentary that captured this. And I think, certain kind of clips from YouTube and Instagram and influencer clips that have captured similar kind of daredevil things, all kind of come from this intimate point of view. And I think so. I kind of, in terms of making the film, I quickly turned to this thing of it's not about observational glamour and kind of fanciness. It's about like Becky's perspective and how does she feel. So a close-up of a hand is more important than the spectacle sometimes of a big grand shot. And that kind of narrative idea of like the sound and these visuals stitching together to form an experience was really like what how I kind of went about it.
Well, it's interesting you say that too, because you're right. Becky and Hunter are a wonderful pair, these
Mm.
characters. But you talk about the image and like you see in these YouTubers, and Hunter is very much about the image. She
Yeah, yeah,
dresses to get more likes. She's trying to
yeah.
get the shot. I'm hanging by one hand,
Just
all of these things just to
yeah,
get the perfect shot.
yeah, yeah,
I was wondering, like from your perspective, like it seems to be a conversation about sort of YouTube culture,
yeah.
and do you think maybe we've gone too far in this drive for social media?
I think, well, I think it's, I think Hunter's character represents that, right? In terms
Right.
of like to begin with, like there's a very human element of Hunter that
Yeah.
she kind of covers herself with this pretend version after Dan's death, and I think that's how she kind of hides from it, and that's what the kind of film I suppose gets to. I think there's a look, there's a human behind everyone who kind of makes content ultimately. So I think there is like I hope the lesson of the film from a kind of extreme point of view is never ever do that. So I do hope because because it's terrifying people putting themselves in jeopardy in harm's way for something empty and vacuous. That is it's the definition of kind of like I don't want to say stupidity, but it kind of is, right? When you think about it, it's like and I think with the film, it was a chance to kind of really dig into what's really worthwhile, what's real and then that's where kind of Hunter's character goes really, is that she does have like I think there is the flip side of that mirror though, is that like in terms of really living and really doing things. I also think that that's the message I would like to be taken from the movie, that look, we have one life and it kind of goes quickly and sometimes quicker than others. And I think kind of living every moment and trying to get the most out of life, there's a lot that can be said, and I think it influences and different folks who have the ability to tell stories more individually. There's a lot out there that do a great job of that, and I think actually do a good job. But I think that unfortunately, the kind of noisy nonsense ones kind of like froth to the top and give us a bit of a blurred view of it. But I think it's another form of filmmaking expression, truthfully. So I think it's just finding the balance of it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And our viewers and listeners can like and subscribe. No, I'm kidding.
Smash that subscribe button.
Smash that subscribe button.
See, I don't even know. I was, there's some influencers watching the film the other day, and I was very acutely aware watching it with them. I was like, I'm sure my Instagram kind of I've got plot holes in Instagram going on all over the place.
I'm just I'm kidding, obviously, but it is funny because I realize the irony of
Yeah.
that as I ask you that question. One of the things I love that you touched on there is the human element, because I think that's what makes the film work. Honestly, I think because the spectacle is great. We get a lot of spectacle though in a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But Becky's journey is actually an interesting one to ride along with throughout the film. And there's a real relationship between grief and fear in this film, with Dan's death and of course this experience. I was wondering why that was so important to you to tie together.
So I think like it comes from a personal element of my own of having lost someone and then kind of going through that process myself to some degree, and I think, but it's at the heart of life, right? Life and death are so intimately kind of connected that I think as a filmmaker, it's going to sound pretentious, right? But I think you want to tell a human story. That's really what you're trying to do, and explore something that might be internally, externally cathartic to explore, but also to share something that you might have learned. And I felt like with this film, I really wanted to wrap something important to me around, with the candy wrapper, let's just say, of this big kind of ride. And so I think we've all also been through such hell in the last couple of years, and we all kind of need to heal from that, and part of that is climbing out of things and living life, and rather than kind of surrendering to fear. So the notion of kind of daring yourself to get somewhere, or overcoming a fear, I think is very part of like what we as humans and as people around the world kind of should be doing. And it's kind of, and so it's very, I don't know, there's a very personal element, but I think it applies to everyone. And I think and I think that for me, as a takeaway, to kind of share that is the part that I kind of like the most about the movie, really. And hopefully that's the bit that people take away with it,
Yeah, absolutely. It is interesting because Becky's journey about her fear is sort of pushed by Hunter, but Hunter uses this thing and sort of like kick fear in the groin.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the way to conquer fear, or is it like?
Yeah, well, that's it. I guess the debate of that is, as a conflict, right? Is that you've got one character who ran, who kind of hid from it, and you've got another character who ran at it, and I think those two are different ways to deal with grief, and I think they're coming back together there, and looking at both sides of it. They both have kind of have a journey to get through to become what they need to, what they really need is kind of presented through that conflict, I think. But it's hard, like, let's be honest, like life is tough, right? So you end up with these real life things to deal with, and we all do at some point, right? So I think that's the central kind of debate, and hopefully the central resonance of what comes out of the movie, I think.
Yeah, for sure. We're just as we're starting to run out of time, Scott. I just thought I gotta ask, what scares you?
It's I was gonna say like movie producers, but that's
right.
Yeah, so no, what scares me? No, like honestly, if I obviously I get scared of heights, but I think honestly, what scares me is is wasting your life. That scares me more than anything. And like I think the biggest fear I would have is being on my deathbed and regretting things. Like regret scares me. So I think I personally feel like the message of the movie is one that I've tried to adopt in my own life, being honest, and trying to live it and do it, and don't fear failure, basically, is kind of what I try and kind of erupt. So that's regret is definitely my biggest fear, and I will try and minimize that as much as possible, I hope, but we'll see. Life's a journey, right?
No, absolutely. Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
No, thanks, Dave. This been feels a bit heavy one, but it's nice. You're getting deep there, but it's good. So I like
thanks so much. And
thank you. Thanks. Take care.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.